Today's May 25th, 2018. Welcome to the Polymath Project. My name is Armand. Today we have some cool topics. A couple of days ago, the NFL released its new policy on the national anthem. It's been a little quiet on that front over the past 6 to 9 months. It seems like both sides, all sides and parties, including the players and the union and the owners, have kind of come together and played nice. And I think that's about to change again now that the policy, before the season, of course, has finally come down. So we'll talk about that. We'll also talk about one of our favorite subjects, cryptocurrency, the latest in terms of global regulations. And then, of course, within 3 weeks, the World Cup 2018 starts in Russia. And we'll talk about that. I'll give a bit of a preview. We'll look at the draw, and we'll talk about the World Cup as well. So it's going to be an exciting summer, and it's a beautiful day here in Jersey City. So let's go back to the NFL anthem and talk about this. As we know, this all started a couple of years ago with Colin Kaepernick of the San Francisco 49ers at the time taking a knee, starting to take a knee, first on his own, and then some of his teammates joining in support of him and the causes that he was representing, mainly racial inequality, police brutality, things of that nature. And obviously it caused a stir, a number of reactions from both fans, from owners, from people like the president. It's obviously caused a bit of a controversy and raised a conversation that started, that a lot of people see, and I certainly agree is a healthy conversation to have, and to have any type of celebrity, whether it's an athlete, an entertainer, a politician, whatever role you're in. If you're in front of a camera and there's an audience, you have an influence. You have certain opportunities. You certainly have responsibilities. And what people decide to do with that platform, I believe, is completely up to them. Obviously, you can lose your job the way Colin Kaepernick did. He's certainly good enough to be an NFL quarterback, but he's obviously been blackballed from the league by some kind of consensus or group work collaboration between the owners that have all generally refused to bring him in. Some other players, including Eric Reid, who's a quality safety in the league, who is also on the 49ers, remains unsigned right now, which is a bit mysterious because he is a quality player. And he believes it's a similar type of collusion, that's the word I was looking for, between owners that don't want to sign players that basically don't comply with their wishes, which one would argue, I could see the logic of it, is the right of an employer to decide whether they want their organization or someone in their organization to represent their organization or express views that they may not agree with. So there's a lot of sides to it. Let's talk about the new policy, what it really is. And really what this is all about for the NFL and the owners' standpoint, it's about the revenue. We can take a look here and see that this is obviously the top, most valued sports, not franchise, but league, so consortium of franchises in the world, essentially. And apparently the league's not happy with their growth. I'm not sure how you could complain when you're on top of the world, but the numbers haven't been as strong with the injuries and all kinds of reasons. Some people cite this anthem whole debate and all this kind of protest, silent protest, to be part of the reason why fans are disenchanted and tuning out. May have something to do with it, may not. But obviously the league doesn't want to see, and all the stakeholders don't want to see their revenue go down. And this brings up really a key topic that really can apply across different industries. We're just using the NFL as the example here. I think the topic we're going to talk about afterwards in terms of cryptocurrency and innovation and kind of game-changing, groundbreaking, society realigning types of concepts tend to rattle people. And they rattle the established players that are used to controlling things and who are profiting nicely in the current order, in the traditional way things work. Whereas people coming up, challenging that 1%, that authority, looking to kind of decentralize or distribute power in a way, the way cryptocurrency and blockchain is doing. challenges the establishment, and that's exactly what's happening in both the crypto space, and that's the same exact thing that's happening here in the sphere of professional sports. We've seen it happen in politics. We have the example here of a prominent political, social activist and Martin Luther King Jr., as well as one of the top athletes of all time, Muhammad Ali, here together, who were two outspoken people who didn't stand back, didn't stand quiet in the face of discrimination, in the face of inequality, in the face of injustice. And they spoke up at the risk of their lives, at the risk of their careers, at the risk of doing jail time because the authorities said something else. So it's challenging because no one wants to go to jail, right? We want to live in a free world and live an enjoyable life with our families, doing things we enjoy. But sometimes you need to stand up, and it's a scary thing to do. I think there's, again, a lot of that going on the other side of our conversation in terms of the cryptocurrency community and founders and entrepreneurs doing things that are difficult to regulate because they're entirely new. They're new thought systems. They're new ways of doing business, new ways of running companies, the decentralized autonomous organization. What is that? Who's in charge? Who can we kind of put on trial here if a company and the way it makes decisions is completely decentralized across hundreds of thousands of people that live in different places? Who do we go after? Is, again, in the traditional mind of the local authorities and jurisdictions. So I always find it funny, talking to lawyers and different people that are licensed in different regions. They just, as soon as you talk about global concepts, they're kind of stuck because all they know is how to do business in the US or a specific country or a specific state, understandably, because that's where they were trained and those are the laws that they were licensed and are licensed to practice and speak for. So it certainly makes sense on one hand, but it's kind of a box. And in each box, if that's where we live, we can't see too far outside of it. And that's what entrepreneurs do, that's what visionaries do, and that's what people that stand up for inequality do. So let's look quickly at what the new policy is, but just before that, a couple of more images really just from the recap of what has happened over the last year and a half. We had this wonderful statement from one of the owners. I'm going to showcase the two owners from Texas here, the Houston Texans owner. The inmates can't run the prison, which of course he later regretted and, supposedly regretted, said that he was sorry for making those statements. When over 60-70% of your roster is made up of African Americans and 95% of the owners are white, you have to be careful what you say. And when you say something, we're not always sure whether it's authentic or you're saying it to kind of appease your cohort, essentially. This is Jerry Jones here. I love this shot because, and I'm ashamed to say I'm a Cowboy fan for how he has taken up such a strong position against players expressing themselves. Again, it's his right. It's his team. He owns it, unfortunately. That's one of the reasons maybe they haven't won in almost over 20 years now. But, I know it pains him here. You could kind of see the look on his face as he's got to kneel because the players, and the coaches all kind of felt this was the right way to make their expression against the statements that Trump had made the day before that. Of course, Jones isn't going to be kneeling anymore, and if any of the players kneel on the field like this, going forward, they're going to be receiving fines and maybe even suspended. So in essence, that's what the new rule is. This kind of display where, again, players are kneeling is not going to be allowed. Let's take a look. I've got a post up here, and I'm going to come out of the presentation for a second and skip over here so we can look at what the policy is. So won't read the whole thing, but here's what essentially it boils down to. All team and league personnel on the field shall stand and show respect for the flag and the anthem. The game operations manual will be revised to remove the requirement that all players be on the field for the anthem. Personnel who choose not to stand for the anthem may stay in the locker room or in a similar location off the field until after the anthem has been performed. A club will be fined by the league if the personnel are on the field and do not stand and show respect for the flag and the anthem. So in essence, that's what it comes down to. If players want to protest, they're saying do so silently, do so in the locker, don't do it so in front of millions of people, basically. The 60 to 80,000 people that are standing there in the stands watching, as well as the millions that are watching on TV, that sponsors are paying for and how the league is really generating its revenue. We don't want that on display. Let it be something that you do in silence. So it'll be very interesting to see how this plays out. Players can stand, but does that mean they can stand and raise their fists? Can they lock arms? Things of that nature. There are other platforms, other ways to display how they feel or what their position is. So we're going to find out come September, and obviously you have reactions on both sides of the fence here. The president and the White House has commented on how pleased they are with the policy. Some players are okay with it, and a lot of players are really angry about it. So we'll, again, see how it plays out. I believe the summary is the NFL is just really playing a game for the last year and a half, playing nice, putting $80 million into social injustice, platforms, which is no small sum of money. But it's almost like the price you pay just to kind of have some positive PR and make sure that, your reputation is kind of balanced and you're able to maintain some level of good showing, in front of your players and in front of fans. But I don't believe it's genuine. And actually, I think Steve Kerr, who's one of the top basketball coaches in the league for the Golden State Warriors, I think said it best. So let me go over and play what Kerr said here in this video clip just in the last 2 days.
What are your thoughts on the NFL's reaction to the anthem?
I think it's just typical of the NFL. They're just playing to their fan base, and they're just, basically trying to use the anthem as fake patriotism, nationalism, scaring people. It's idiotic, but that's how the NFL has handled their business. And I'm proud to be in a league that understands patriotism in America is about free speech, about peacefully protesting. And I think our leadership in the NBA understands that when the NFL players were kneeling, they were kneeling to protest police brutality, to protest racial inequality. They weren't disrespecting the flag or the military, but our president decided to make it about that. The NFL followed suit, pandered to their fan base, created this hysteria. It's kind of what's wrong with our country right now. Is people in high places are trying to divide us, divide loyalties, make this about the flag, as if the flag is something other than what it really is. It's a representation of what we're about, which is diversity and peaceful protests and abilities, right to free speech. So it's really ironic, actually, what the NFL is doing.
Really couldn't say it much better myself. Just to highlight a couple of things he said there, that's really ironic that they're trying to use this the flag as something to really impose and actually limit freedoms when it's actually something that's supposed to stand for our freedom and diversity. So also a couple of key things he said about how they're trying to divide us, people in high places, and that's what people in high places typically do. If people unite against them, they'll be overpowered, so they have to divide others. That's happened all throughout human history, throughout the world wars and things of that nature, and it's what's happened in this country. What else did he say here? It's what's wrong with our country. Typical NFL, idiotic, and patriotism is about free speech. not limiting people's rights to express themselves. So, that's where we're at, as a country. Not proud to say it, not proud to be part of that part of it, but very proud for those that are standing up and that will continue to stand, kneel, or express themselves in whatever way they choose, and to take chances, because really at the end of the day, it's a risk. Colin Kaepernick risked his career and is struggling financially for it, but life is more than just about the money and the bottom line. There's a different bottom line, for all of us, and each person has to find that within their own soul and their own journey, and then decide how much and how far they're willing to go to stand up and stand for truth. So that'll segue us into the discussion on, crypto policy and regulation. And I like talking about these topics together because I see such a perfect parallel between them. What's happening in the world of cryptocurrency and regulation? Here we are almost at the end of May 2018. We saw an unprecedented run in the last quarter of 2017 with these ICOs, these initial coin offerings, and this completely new model, which started back in 2008, 2009, and even really started before that in terms of distributed ledger technology and open source. All of the underpinnings of blockchain have been building up for a long time, and they're really just reaching that tipping point, that threshold where they're becoming viable as business models and sustainable and able to be connected globally and have an actual impact. So things take a long time to build, and then they cross a certain threshold, and then all of a sudden start skyrocketing. That's what we've seen happen in the last year, and now the authorities certainly have to figure out a way to deal with it. Every government is feeling, in a sense, kind of on edge and a bit threatened by potentially destabilizing force here, or at least a force that reorients the balance of power of typical centralized authorities, whether it's centralized banking or centralized governance. People are looking for something different, something truly democratic and truly global. The boundaries of countries and states don't mean to people what they used to. We're moving into a new era, and our old political kind of systems and ways of doing things don't serve the people anymore. And so those need to be reinvented, and that's part of what blockchain and cryptocurrency and the ethos of it is doing, with Bitcoin being the first major use case that's continuing to grow and find itself. On policy, I've got a couple of graphics here. I'll pull up one here that shows basically a recent image of green being global advocates and red being where crypto's banned. I think it's a little ironic that in this model, U.S. is being shown as a global advocate. I think that's questionable. There's obviously a lot of advocates here, but I don't think U.S. governance has been very friendly at all to entrepreneurs and cryptocurrency-based companies. I believe that the SEC in particular, IRS, have been, in one sense, waiting in the wings, making comments, and not actually formally putting out specific policy. But I don't think it's been helpful, and I don't think they've been helpful, and I think there's a fear tactics that they've employed and they're employing. Issuing subpoenas is certainly fine. It doesn't mean people are doing anything wrong. It just means, that they're questioning certain folks and how they raised capital and whether they followed what thought process they followed and what kind of registrations they put forward. Are cryptocurrencies and certain tokens securities or utilities or something else, commodities? And it's a debate that's still going on, and people are trying to figure it out. And certain countries like Switzerland, like smaller places, Estonia, Gibraltar, Malta, are taking different points of view. And Japan, Australia, larger countries there are taking different points of view and are being a bit more open, accepting, embracing, moving with the change, moving with the times, instead of trying to keep the old guard in place and apply this new, completely new type of value store system, and put it into an old box and something familiar so that they can regulate it the way they regulated other things. This is completely a cross-border global phenomenon. It's not something that belongs to or should be, again, put in a box, like, let's say, a currency as like the dollar, which is accepted here that you can't use as soon as you leave the US, whereas if you have Bitcoin, you can use it anywhere, all around the world. And that's the future. And that is already coming into the present and destabilizing those that tried to hold and did hold the old system together for a long period of time. So I don't believe most governments are equipped to deal with this. I don't believe this is something that ought to be regulated at the, to some degree there has to be some kind of laws in place, of course, but I don't believe the governance overall of cryptocurrencies is something that should be directed towards specific countries. I think there's got to be a global solution. And I don't believe the global solution is going to be headed up by the actual formal states. I think it's going to be done through some type of either nonprofit, self-regulating, and independent NGO type of governance model. It shouldn't really fall into typical current government divisions and departments. But of course, that'll be a battle that's waged. It's already being waged, and we'll see how it plays out. But again, I think it's a very similar concept to what we see in the NFL there. You have the people that are in the current ownership position trying to hold on to their reign of power, whereas you have the actual performers and the people that are trying to move things forward, the entrepreneurs, the players, the people that really make up what the value of these different businesses are. And those people are trying to carry things forward because they're the ones that have the vision. They're the ones that are actually doing the work that everyone's interested in and wants to connect to. Whereas the other folks are just, had some ownership and, some kind of position of control and are trying to really weigh down and hold back progress. That's really the essence of it, as I see it. And, that's going to take us towards the last topic I want to talk about today, which is the World Cup, which comes up. As my friend, again, from Iceland said when some of us asked him in a chat group we were on, how does Iceland, with under 1 million people, field a team good enough to qualify for the World Cup, whereas a country of 300 million in the U.S. and all the resources we have and put into our youth soccer and all of our programs not qualify? And he said one thing, it's teamwork. It's people knowing how to subvert their ego for the greater good, for the cause of the team. So let's let that sink in for a minute, because having all these people and all these resources and this kind of land, great land, that we have and the promise, the American dream, I think is really in a crisis, has been in a crisis for a while. And a lot of what we see from, school mass shootings to the low quality of education to the inability to get things done politically to the tensions we have virtually with every country in the world. We're not the saviors of the world. We're, just not taking a very friendly approach to international relations. So I'm sure there's a lot of other happy countries there seeing the U.S. not being in, and it's kind of karmic in a way. And again, similar to the kind of crypto and the Anthem policy, I think it's, you see the U.S. missing, and you see the U.S. missing the boat in terms of opportunity and in terms of taking a truly decentralized, a truly collaborative, and a truly democratic approach, which isn't the U.S. approach to really anything, especially world politics and global politics. And so, I think just like a lot of crypto entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs in general are leaving the country and forming their businesses out of the U.S. or not even allowing U.S. investors into their cryptocurrency, startup and venture because they're scared of the ramifications of the SEC. Again, it's kind of karmic. With the wrong policies and with this kind of austerity, people will go elsewhere. The world is a global, say, playground, but opportunity nowadays. And life moves on. The world moves on. The World Cup moves on, with or without those that aren't kind of up to the level where they are able to be part of it. So I think there's a larger underpinning to the U.S. not being qualified for the world's largest and most important sporting event, and it's kind of I think appropriate at this point in time, given the state of crisis that we're in, and kind of rediscovery and hopefully complete revamping and some kind of rejuvenation coming out of it. On U.S. timing, the games are going to start fairly early and then go through lunch, so it'll be a great lunchtime, long lunch opportunity to go catch a game, and grab a drink and some wings or something for lunch, and meet some friends. So I know that some of our crew will be doing that, and we'll be doing it with some kind of sponsorships and in partnership with some of our local partners. So we'll be reporting on that and come back and give you a report on how the World Cup goes, and talk with some of our buddies that are involved a little deeper in the soccer community here when we come back. But I think the overall, again, synopsis and theme we're looking at here is what happens when you have this kind of austerity and this kind of centralized power and authority that moves to a level of being abusive and stops listening to its audience and doesn't share power, doesn't share opportunity. That opportunity and those people are going to eventually come up, or they're going to move away and go somewhere else that's a more embracing and a more harmonious community. So I think community is really kind of the main theme here. That's what the players that stand up for social injustice are looking to do, support their broken communities, and the communities that they see aren't getting the support they need. It's the same thing with the entrepreneurs that are trying to launch new innovation. They're looking to come together in community and bring change and evolution, to the world of technology and business. And, the World Cup is just one of these global stages that tends to reflect all these other types of realities that are going on in the world. So looking forward to talking about it a little more over the coming weeks. And we'll see you all soon. I won't really leave you with any specific challenge except to get out there and enjoy the World Cup. Try to go catch a game or two and sneak out of the office for at least one long lunch during your weekday to catch one of the games that you think is entertaining, or one of the teams that you're following, and continue up your education on cryptocurrency, and try to find a sports bar that where you can watch a World Cup game that accepts your cryptocurrency payments. That'll be the challenge for this coming month. For the month of June 2018, the Polymath Project Challenge is to go enjoy a long lunch at a local sports bar where you can pay in some type of cryptocurrency. All right, take care. Signing off.